Hey everyone, this is Straw Hat Puffy. This time I'm doing my top 20 manga I read last year in 2020. And I perceived this video to be a bit longer than my top 20 anime I saw in 2020 video. Personally, because I think I have gotten way more into manga in the previous year. And I've kind of developed an interest or a taste for manga, the way the panels are drawn, um, how artists can bring still images to life. I just really love the art form, and I read so many good manga um, in 2020. You'll see lots of really uh, top manga on this list, like of all time. So anyways, I wanted to try a different format than the last video, kind of still experimenting with how I want to do these top 10, top 20 lists in the future. I definitely do see myself making more later on, maybe with different kinds of things. Maybe I'll do video games, maybe more anime and manga. We'll see. But this time, I'm gonna try to do it in a tier list form, not necessarily among the manga I've seen last year, just like in general. So out of all the manga, I would say, oh, this is a B tier manga, this C tier. And I wanted to do this way because it was really hard for the anime video to rank them side by side. Like it's hard to say, oh, Kyokai no Kanata is lower than um Assassination Classroom. Like I think they're all like I think most of the anime I watched that were on that list were definitely like B A tier, and it could be daunting to some people to see like, oh, this anime is number 6, and then oh, this anime is number 14. It's number 14 doesn't sound too appealing as if I were to say it was an A tier manga. I mean A tier anime. So yeah, I will do it that way, or do it this way with a tier list and kind of see how that goes. But before I, or not before, let's just get right into it. I just read some really good manga, and yeah, I just can't wait to tell you all about it. So first on this list, gonna be the first C tier and the only C tier manga, which is K-On! College slash K-On! High School. If you don't know, this is the continuation of K-On! In the form of manga. I didn't actually read the original K-On! Manga. I only watched the anime, both seasons and the movie. And I guess I will say it was really nice to see a continuation going after the movie, seeing Hokago tea time, kind of going into college. It's kind of funny seeing these kind of moe, mostly helpless girls, well, mostly Yui, go to college and kind of see how I can deal with stress of classes and stuff, but as well as still trying to continue their band, their light music club. Um, and then on the flip side, you had Azusa, who has to keep the light music club going, but she has to get other kids to join the club. And I think it was kind of nice seeing um, both of these, seeing more K-On!, kind of seeing how they're doing. My only problem was that it was really short. I think it was about 14 chapters for college and 14 chapters for high school. And it was so short that like I thought it would be like, oh, okay, it's gonna end ambiguously, but no, it like kind of just jumps to the end of their years. So like at the end of K-On! High School, it shows Sawako Sensei, Sawako-chan, just being like, oh, I wonder what next year's light music club will be like. Just kind of saying like, oh, the year's over. But I really wish like they delved more into it. Like we didn't really get to see much of the band playing on both college and high school, and sadly, I just wish it was longer than just jumping immediately to the end of the year. I will say though, it was still pretty funny. Still kept the uh, K-On! Humor that I know, where you can have Ritsu and Mio playing Japanese manzai, which is like the two-person comedy, one person being the Joker, which is Ritsu, and then one person being the straight man is in like to correct all their mistakes and jokes, which is Mio, and it's kind of funny seeing their interactions. And then of course you have people like Azusa and Yui kind of being like moe, sweet, innocent. Well, I guess not as much as Azusa, but you know, it's still pretty nice. See, I definitely did get a few laughs out of me. I just only put in C tier just because it was way too short, and I wish I could have seen more of it. And I think these tiers will be in order. So I kind of contradicting myself, but um, and manga more to the right of a tier would mean it's slightly lower, but it don't get it twisted. It's not like too much lower. It'll be still, you know, still within that tier, but just a little bit less. Um, I guess I'll go up. So B minus, that will be Gon. So Gon was a interesting manga. Actually, I'll first say like most of these manga were recommended to me, not necessarily directly, but I watched a lot of the Masked Man's videos. Definitely give his channel a watch. Um, Definitely introduced me to so many good manga, but one of them was Gon, which was basically a short little, I think 25, 26 chapter manga of this, I guess, supposedly badass dinosaur named Gon. And he's not even like living in prehistoric times. He's just in the wilderness doing his things. And what makes this manga the most interesting is that there's no words whatsoever. I don't even think there's any onomatopoeias or the sound effects you see in manga. Um it's just purely art. And it's interesting because all the characters are animals, and you can just kind of tell what's going on just by the animals' reactions and what they're going to do. And the art is just honestly incredible. It's one of the best I've seen. It really captures nature well. I really like how they draw the animals. Um, just everything looks phenomenal. I think one thing that's kind of holding it back is personally I didn't like Gon too much. Like even though he's badass, he's like practically invincible, and he knows he can get away with anything. And it kind of hurt me seeing him beat up all these animals, especially some of the more ferocious ones, like him like beating up like lions and cheetahs in like horrible ways. Like of course like none of them are like dying per se. It's like it still retains the comedic, um, it's still comedic effect. Like there's occasionally humorous times where Gon is just kind of laughing with other animals fooling around like with monkeys. But yeah, I just it kind of hurt. I just didn't like it when he was hurting some of them. I guess that's his way. I mean, it kind of. I think one of the main parts of the story is that it was trying to show the law of the jungle, like the strong, the fittest live, strong, survival of the fittest. There we go. Yeah, the strong live, the weak die. It's kind of Gon's like tough love, showing animals that if you're not strong enough, you ain't gonna survive. But yeah, it's still pretty good though. I would still recommend looking at it purely for the art. I mean, it's just art anyways. But I mean, you're not gonna be reading Gon for the story, I'd say, since most of them are kind of just one shots with very little connection until the very end. But another B minus is gonna be 3 Days of Happiness. Um, I know some people who have read it probably won't agree with it being B minus. Um, but personally, I just didn't really like the main characters, maybe plural. But I felt like they kind of made some dumb decisions. Then again, they were quite young. I think like early 20s. Um, and basically, this premise of the story is like giving up some of your lifespan for money. Um, I don't remember the exact thing. I think he was like he sold all of his life for just like 10,000 yen, which is about like I don't know, $100 ish, and that's like chump change. But that was how much the rest of his life was worth because it was gonna be really crummy and all that. But he still did it anyways. So he only had 3 months to live initially, and then of course, as the title says, he eventually shortened it down to only 3 days. And I felt like it was kind of stupid because, I mean, realistically, I think most people would say, um, life isn't worth anything, it isn't worth any monetary value. There's You can't put a price on life, and I think that's kind of illustrating one of the fault. I think that was the point, I guess, illustrating the faults that the main character did a stupid thing, selling his life for money, um, which he shouldn't have done in the first place. He should have thought about it rationally, even if his life was gonna be crummy. Maybe he still could have changed it. And it kind of corrects this mistake in the end if you go ahead and read it. I don't think I'll really spoil it, but some people do make the right decision. And it's also kind of interesting because it introduces another girl or another, not another girl, but another character who is a girl who he develops feelings for, and she's kind of in a similar situation where instead of selling her life for money, she instead sells her time, um, which it was a little different, as in like she was gonna be made to like work and spend some of her life doing doing this job, which you'll find out if you read it. Don't really want to spoil too much. Well, I guess it's not really spoiler, but I think it's still a good read. Definitely give it a look. It's really short. I believe it's only 18 chapters. So a little sweet, and the message is there is a clear message that I think many could not necessarily learn from, but just like ponder about. But yeah, good manga. I mean, of course, all these are good. But next, B minus, gonna be the Disappearance of Nagato Yuki-chan. Um, if you don't know, this is a little spin-off of Haruhi Suzumiya, but instead it was like, what if we were in the Shoushitsu universe? So, which was the universe in the movie where Nagato's like really moe and all that. Yeah, but multiply that moe by 100, and it's kind of funny because you get to see all these characters again, um, but it's a romantic comedy where Kyon and Nagato are like best friends, but they also love each other, but they're really awkward about it and they don't really know how to express their feelings, get it across. It was kind of basic for a romantic comedy, but I was a little biased because it is Haruhi Suzumiya, and it was nice seeing her again with long hair and kind of retaining her personality. It definitely would be C or lower if I hadn't read Haruhi, and I would like to put it up, but it's like I just can't ignore some of its flaws. It just, I mean, it's really hard to like, for me personally, to like romantic comedies because the characters are just so awkward, and it's like, oh my gosh, if they just used a little bit of communication, they would have got together a long time ago. But luckily, there is that development. It does happen eventually, and they do of course end up becoming a couple, even if they're really awkward about it and like don't even like hold hands and stuff or whatever, and go on dates. I did like the little callbacks to the original series, and it was nice to see those references spotted out. Seeing Asakura, um, still being Nagato's like caretaker slash mom, and also being really good with a knife still, in more ways than one. It was still pretty sweet. I only liked it just because it's Haruhi. Wished Haruhi got together with Kyoto. I would like to see a romantic comedy of that without the sci-fi, but sadly it could not. It was not. It could not be. This just being in mind that this is not from the same artist who did the Haruhi Suzumiya manga is just, I think, given permission by the original light novel writer to draw a spin-off manga. So just keep in mind the art will not be the same. And of course, the main writer isn't actually in charge, but maybe they did collaborate a little bit, kind of discuss what each characters would do. Um, I will say there is like, I was surprised the ending. It went pretty far in the future. Well, not I guess too far, but it was kind of interesting to see um, the characters go beyond their senior year of high school. I was like, wow, okay, we got Kyon in college, Haruhi in college, all that. It was really nice to see. But yeah, if you like Haruhi, please, if you like Haruhi, tell me. I need to meet more Haruhi fans. But, and yeah, if you like Haruhi, you want to see some more, or maybe if you like Yuki, maybe even more than Haruhi, then yeah, give this book manga a try. Oh, my bad. This is actually a B. Yeah, I'm looking at my list, and this is a B. Next one, another B. Signal 100. Probably B. These two are probably B minuses. I don't know, but yeah, either or. I think really black and white accentuates what horror can look like. Um, kind of ambiguous what everything could mean just because of the contrast of colors between black and white, and especially like blood. Like it could look like a stain, could look like some like ooze or oil, tar, whatever, or just straight up blood. And Signal 100 was, I think, one of the first I read. Kind of introduced me to this. Oh, actually, not introduced me. I read a lot of Junji Ito, Uzumaki, Gyo, all those horror horror manga. Really good. But anyways, I'm gonna talk about Signal 100, and this one was really kind of scary to me. Basically, the premise is a class of students kind of piss off the wrong person, and that person punishes them by hypnotizing them. And then the hypnotism doesn't seem like anything, but what it does is basically there are 100 rules they cannot break. If they break a single one, they automatically kill themselves. Like their brain sends a function and they do it with with the closest thing they can. Um, it kind of reminded me of another, which is an anime, and it's kind of funny where like you're wondering like, okay, if someone triggers a signal, how are they going to kill themselves right there? Um, and it was really gruesome to see them just do it, but also kind of funny to see them do it in a weird, unexpected way. I can't think of any. I think probably just like someone just slamming their head in the wall or all of a sudden, but it was kind of scary. So I mean, like if you all of a sudden we're just given 100 rules and like, oh no, which one can I break? Which one can I not break? Really scary because you have no idea what they are. And of course, over the course of the story, there are more challenges which introduce more rules, which exposes more rules, of course, involving more students to die. And of course, the kids are going crazy. They don't know what to do. There's nothing they can do. They're just kind of forced to endure it. And then, of course, in classic horror endings, it can be. I guess you could say I saw it coming, but it's still, I guess, kind of enjoyable to read just because it brought me to the horror, a bit more into the horror genre, and also, um, of course, I think one of the best parts of a horror manga is if it makes the reader feel fear, just like the characters do. And of course, I mean, I actually probably get scared easily, or I scare myself easily. The dark definitely isn't one of my preferred places. But yeah, Signal 100 kind of neat. I think it was really short. I don't remember how long. Maybe 36 chapters. So yeah, another short one if you want to give it a try. Another B tier is gonna be Prince of Tennis. So if you don't know, I've been playing tennis for I want to say 7 years. Since the beginning of middle school. I haven't been able to play in college yet. Of course, that's because COVID and all that. So I can't go out and play. I can only hit with my brother every once in a while when he comes to visit me. But I loved reading Prince of Tennis at first because it kind of revitalized my love for tennis. Kind of seeing some cool shots, some cool call outs. When they reference famous tennis players, which I actually don't know too many, to be honest. I don't actually watch tennis. Um, but yeah, it was kind of neat at first, kind of seeing a first year, short year Ryoma Hoshi. I think that's his name. Oh gosh, no, it's not Ryoma Hoshi. That's the that's the Danganronpa character. It was kind of cool to see some short first year beat everyone in the team, including third years. It was just really interesting to see. I think the first bits were pretty cool, um, because it's tennis and the way they drew it and wrote the matches was exciting to me. Just seeing like, oh, who's gonna get the ball? Seeing Ryoma always so fast, always getting everything despite being so short. And of course, his famous catchphrase, I think, was like "Mara Mara dane." It's kind of cool. Like you're sort of similar to like, oh, you're 100 years too early to beat me. But it was pretty cool at first. And I say at first because later in the end things got really out of proportion. Of course, with shonen manga, you gotta have your character, the main protagonist, power up, and of course the villains as well. But in a tennis manga, the only way to power up is give them like impossible abilities, impossible shots, things that you cannot do in real life. And that just kind of ruined the experience to me. It was like it didn't really feel like just a pure tennis manga. It just felt like a shonen manga where they have superpowers, which I didn't really appreciate. I like things being realistic, at least in sports manga, which you'll kind of see later in my list. I think you may already know if you looked at some of the manga choice below. But anyways, um, Prince of Tennis was pretty enjoyable at first. I did love it a lot. I do love tennis. I think it could really do without the last chapters, and I'm not even gonna touch the next Prince of Tennis manga. I forgot the name of it, but I hear that's just like even more stupid powers, and like some people can even like stop time, um, somehow in tennis, which is stupid. Uh, it just kind of felt like a joke at the end for me. But of course, if you like tennis, give the first part a try. Okay. think the last of the B tier is, let's see if I could find it, Tenkuu Shinpan. Um, this one I read, I think the most recently. I think it was the last one I read in 2020, and this one was cool because it is an alternate reality where a bunch of people are thrown in there, and they kind of have to live or survive, and there are these masked people with supernatural abilities and weapons that are all trying to kill you, and the main character is trying to kind of solve the mystery of this weird alternate reality and put an end to it. And I quite liked it at first. It made me really scared. Of course, it starts with like just the main girl just running away from all these masked people, defenseless, um, trying to run away. And of course, oh, I forgot to mention that the alternate reality always takes place in these tall skyscrapers with bridges across the roofs. That's the only way to travel. So it's really scary for the character because she witnesses other people uh choosing not to get killed by the masked men. So instead they choose to jump off, and the writer makes sure to draw them jumping off and then getting close to the ground before like splattering into a mess of blood and guts. And it's they don't actually show that the impact, but it's still really gross. Still play the sound effect, or at least write the sound effect. And I thought that was really not. I mean, of course, gross, but the premise was really scary, horrifying. I was really hoping the main girl doesn't die multiple times. Of course, we know that they won't in the beginning, um, but they they do get some really close calls, and until they get like their first kill, then they realize they have to kill others, go against the moral code in order to live on. And of course, they meet some other characters in similar situations. Some will do whatever they can to survive, and it's really interesting to see different people's philosophies. I will say the art is probably some of, or I really love the art. A lot of the characters really shined, um, especially where I just say the characters how they were drawn and special, and especially looked really beautiful. They looked really pretty. I don't know how to describe it. I just the characters, oh, they looked so good. Um, good, probably good wallpaper material. Um, good profile pic. They looked really cute at times, and but however, part of that comes with fan service. There are lots of times characters' clothes get ripped during fights, and then you see like underwear and stuff, bra or whatever. Um, that's how fan service goes. Kind of drew away from the fact that it was a horror, not necessarily horror, I guess high suspense action in the beginning. It's only in B tier, even though I've been speaking high praise about it. Is that the ending? You'll hear this a lot. A lot of the endings of these manga just kind of drop the ball. I think that's part of the problem. Not necessarily just manga in general, maybe serializations. Um, maybe a company's gonna drop your manga soon because it's losing popularity, or it's like they want you to wrap it up, and so sometimes they get rushed. I don't think this ending was necessarily rushed. It is probably a different matter, but um, I didn't like the ending because it kind of changed the tone from like a horror action suspense manga to just shonen battle battle manga. Um, because like main characters got to power up, they got to keep killing and killing all these masked men, other people. Um, and then it's like, where do they go from there? And then I don't want to spoil too much, but like there's a bunch of superpowers, and it didn't really make sense. And this idea of becoming God in the universe really drew me away. I was like, oh no, kind of wished it was simple, just like more simpler. Nothing about this God stuff. You'll see what I mean when you read it, but it just, I just really didn't like the ending bits. I really wish it kind of lost like um the scare factor Tenkuu Shinpan had in the very beginning, and it's such a shame to see it gone. I mean, I guess that's the point because the main character, they're stronger, they can take on masked people, so it's no longer scary for them. But it just didn't really feel too suspenseful whenever they were in trouble. It's like, oh, okay, it doesn't feel the same. It just feels like, oh, they're gonna lose in battle, but it's not the same as like, oh, they're about to get caught by like a masked man with a chainsaw. that kind of thing. But I think the art just kind of saved it, just because characters are pretty. I think we're gonna move on to B plus now, and I think more people are gonna be mad at my taste, but B plus is gonna be Bleach. It's been a while since I read traditional manga or went back to original shonen, which made like shonen great in the to begin with, kind of like these icons. And I started reading Bleach just because of a friend recommended me, and it's like, okay, I think I'll give it a try. I didn't really like it at first, or I mean, I didn't really like the idea of reading Bleach at first. I think when I was little, all my friends were telling me like, "Oh, read Bleach," in like elementary. Yeah, I started reading in elementary, and I was like, "Nah, Bleach sucks. One Piece is the best." Yeah, I was like a One Piece stand back since I was elementary. Um, of course, my idea of One Piece has changed over the years. I will say I did like reading Bleach. It felt kind of nostalgic reading old shonen, but Bleach was kind of interesting to me. I did like a lot of the fights. Well, actually, that's not true. Let's start from the beginning. Um, I think Bleach kind of peaked early, in my opinion. The first arc where they, or maybe second arc, depending on how you put it, the big first major arc where they have to save Rukia from society was, I'd say, one of the best. Um, I always love having a small group of teammates trying to go and save someone, similar to the Enies lobby arc in One Piece. I know I'm trying not to draw comparisons, especially with One Piece, but I did like it how you had Chad. Oh, I love Chad, by the way. Excellent name. He was way ahead of his time. Chad is indeed a Chad. Yeah, Chad, Ichigo. Probably forgetting some other people. Those are the only two I can remember. You had them. I'm forgetting the girl's name. Orihime. Yeah, those three. Maybe. Oh, and Ganju. Can't forget Ganju, the boy. I love how he joined them. But yeah, you had those four. Maybe some others. Infiltrate Soul Society and take them on. And it was so cool to see them fight. Um, then you had Ichigo face off against Kenpachi, one of the coolest in the group. I forgot the name. I think that was really cool. They all got their own 1v1 fights. Ichigo powered up maybe a bit too much right from the get go, but he got his, was it Bankai Zanpakuto. Um, got all that, but it was still cool to see him fight. And sadly, I guess like that was just kind of it for me. I was like, oh man, it's so cool. I think it should just end. Well, of course it can't end right there, but then the later parts just kind of um bothered me. Of course, yeah, it bothered me because a lot of the old characters really we didn't really get to um they didn't really get to shine as much. Chad, like, what's he gonna do? He's just kind of a normal human. Well, not a normal human, of course, but he's just a human, not as special as Ichigo and the rest. And he doesn't really get to appear as much. Um, Felt kind of useless. IMO, and I think later in the end, it's just of course like more not necessarily world breaking powers, but just it just felt like, oh, it's like big power ups, like Ichigo just kind of powering up for no reason, just keep getting stronger. I don't remember too clearly, so maybe I'm for misinterpreting or misremembering some stuff, but because it's been a while since I actually read it, and of course all these other manga I've read definitely clouded my memory. But I just didn't like later fights. It always felt repetitive. It was just like, oh, whoever's winning first isn't gonna win. Like it's like, oh, some bad guy's winning. Well, then they're gonna flip the script and then um say something stupid. Like maybe they're gonna reveal what their power does, or the good guy just pulls some new power out of out of nowhere and then just win. It's kind of dumb. It kind of lost the suspense of what fights were. It was like really predictable who's gonna win or lose. What's the flip around? Like, oh, you think you're winning? Well, actually, you're not. And just kind of bothered me. Also, there are just too many characters that were kind of forced into the spotlight, um, just for no reason. Of course, I mean, you have a lot of Soul Society members, and of course, they all gotta fight somehow, somewhere, especially in the big wars. But I think it's not necessarily upon them, more like upon the bad guys. I don't remember the names, but like the German-esque light people. There's like so many for each letter. It's like 26. and they just kept coming and coming, and each of them were like not necessarily broken, but they each had like multiple forms, each had a bunch of powers. So like a lot of not necessarily explaining, but it's a lot of more repetitive fights of each of them. I didn't really like them the series, but I had to keep going, and then it did like Fullbringers, and Fullbringers didn't even feel like the same thing anymore. It just felt like a cop out. Well, not a cop out, but it just didn't feel right with the series. Didn't really make sense. Just felt like another way in order to give Ichigo, well, okay, that's spoilers, but give Ichigo some power, some more power. You'll see if you decide to read it. Maybe it was better in the anime. Of course, anime probably has fillers, but Bleach will stay in B plus. And wow, I just realized this is also probably gonna piss off some people, but Demon Slayer B plus. Um, I know it's like the new hit series. It's like the movie. I haven't seen it yet, but it's like top in the charts, number one in many places, many categories, so many stands, so many cosplayers, seen so many at conventions. But let's talk about the manga. I started reading it before I watched the anime. Um, just even though I knew the anime was gorgeous, and it is gorgeous, I did watch it eventually. But the manga was different. The art, it was kind of funny because you see this gorgeous anime art, and then the manga's like not as beautiful. Of course, it wasn't bad. It was just kind of funny seeing the comparison. But what made Demon Slayer, I think, kind of unenjoyable, if I'm trying to remember, it's been like over 9 months since I read it. I think it was because like it's kind of tropey in a way. You have a bunch of characters that are kind of. I guess I wouldn't say they're like one personality, one sided. You kind of see development of some others. It's just um I really wish we could have seen like more development of at least the main cast. Tanjiro, um, oh man, the boar guy. He's definitely my favorite, and I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Oh god, and Zenitsu, I guess. Zenitsu is interesting, kind of weird, kind of gross, kind of simping for Nezuko. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna say straight out, hot take. I hate people who think of Nezuko as their waifu. One, she's underage, and two, she like doesn't do any. Well, oh, she doesn't. It's not like she doesn't. She doesn't not do anything. She does help every now and then, but um, she's quiet because she has to. She has been turned into a demon. She has the thing in her mouth, but okay, that's getting off topic. But really, you, I don't think I can agree with you if you put Nezuko as a waifu. Just can't respect it. But yeah, I'll be waifu shaming out here. But I think what really made me like Demon Slayer in the first place was the idea of samurai back in old Japan taking on demons of all sorts and sizes, all shapes and sizes, and each samurai kind of grows special powers depending on their breath. And don't even just call it a JoJo's reference. That is a different topic on its own. Uh, and I will berate you for that. But they each have different breaths, and depending on which, I guess, style you come from, influences your power. Like, of course, Tanjiro has water breath. Later unlocks a new one, which you'll see later. But I think that was kind of cool. It kind of felt more natural to give these people powers. Um, of course, that's how they're gonna fight uh, demons. And I did like the chase for Muzan, the Michael Jackson demon. Of course, they have to find out who he is, where he is, how strong he is, and it was kind of cool to see them chase after him, kind of unlock the mystery. That's probably one of my favorite parts of mysteries when they're chasing after this mysterious figure. You see it with Yoshikage Kira, um, and Diavolo in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and you'll see in many other entries on this list. But what what I really didn't like about Demon Slayer is just the ending. Um, it was just way too rushed, and I'm sure many will agree. I'm hoping Demon Slayer stands can at least agree with that. I'm sure they'd love to see more Demon Slayer. Believe me, I would too. Maybe I would rate it higher if it was. It's just the reason why it's not up in A or A minus or anything is just the ending was so bad. Like the last fight, I guess it's spoilers, but last fight way too short. They really could have, even if they made it into like a second fight, they could have extended a whole lot more than 2 or 3 chapters. Um, is just really anticlimactic, and then oh man, and then of course you all those who have read it, you all know that when it just jumps to the very last chapter, it's like what? That's it? Like what about the rest? Like it's just really stupid how we don't really get to see closure of the characters, or anything. It's just they like save the day, they win, of course. Some things happen, some blocks in the road. Of course, people are gonna die. There are ferocious demons after all, but it just really bothered me with the ending. And of course, the ending is what you leave the readers thinking. And if you leave it on a bad note, it's gonna kind of bring a negative impression. Or at least that's how I kind of interpret manga. Of course, everyone has their different tastes. Maybe they like it, maybe they don't. But personally, I just couldn't. But yeah, A minus tier. Yeah, we're now gonna get into Fire Punch. Um, Fire Punch was really interesting. I thought it was kind of cool seeing a man who gets kind of exploited by others, and he's just kind of like in a fit of rage. Like he's just constantly on fire, and the reason is because like he's immortal as and he keeps healing, but he's just on fire, so he's constantly feeling the pain. And I just found it really cool to see him fight. Like he's constantly on fire. He's always punching people, setting them on fire. And Claire's classic Fire Punch, just really uh sick name to me. Like it's like a Pokemon move, but 100 times more epic. Yeah, Fire Punch. Definitely was neat. It was nice seeing it in like a post-apocalyptic world where there's a bunch of snow, and of course, if it's snowing constantly and there's like barely any food, barely any resources, of course, your only savior is someone on fire constantly. And Fire Punch, who they call Fireman, really funny. But um, I liked the villain. I think some people may, I think some people may not, just because their motivation is kind of twisted. And I was really surprised. I was like, "What? That's why they're doing all this." Um, but it was interesting to see Fireman, Fire Punch. I forgot his name, Edna, something like that. But kind of being manipulated, being told what to do, being made what to do for someone's bidding, being very ambiguous because I don't want to spoil. But it was a really, really neat manga. I guess the art isn't the greatest, I will say. Of course, art is better than what I could do, and I still love the story regardless of the art or not. I mean, read the One Punch Man webcomic. That thing's amazing. Definitely S tier for sure. But that's not on this list. But yeah, Fire Punch definitely good. A minus. Ending kind of weird. Uh, Kind of interesting. I guess that's the only way to kind of end it with how they're doing it. Another one, another A minus, made by the same guy. Gonna be Chainsaw Man, which I think was better than Fire Punch. Mainly because it was like a shonen, um, kind of like more classic shonen style. You got your main character Denji, the Chainsaw Man, ripping things up. I think it was kind of cool to see this. It was I think it was made after Fire Punch, so it's kind of like an improvement of what the author wanted to do. I think originally in Fire Punch, and it was nice. I will say that the main character Denji, I didn't really like too much. Originally, his main motivation for doing things is just to feel Makima's boobs, and honestly, didn't feel too strong of a motivation. Of course, I guess it is for him, for Denji, because he's kind of been deprived of the stuff since he was little, since he was poor and all that, and lonely. But it just didn't feel right to me. It was like, it's like really, that's it. Like, am I supposed to laugh? Like, is it something comedic? Um, it just didn't feel strong enough, and I didn't. I mean, like, is it supposed to be relatable? I mean, like, I guess I can relate, but it's like, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna like go kill people and shit, do that. But well, of course, he's not killing people; he's killing demons and stuff, devils. I forgot the name of it. It was nice seeing some of the other characters fight. seeing their powers. Everyone has different names, just like Chainsaw Man, Shark Man, Spring Man. No, Arms character, but um, ending was also kind of whack. Lots of things going on. It gets pretty intense at times, and it was really interesting to see all these powers, all these strong figureheads, like chasing after the gunman, the one who's been causing havoc everywhere. It's just really intense, and oh man, I think the ending was probably some good stuff. Not like the ending, the very end, but like Yuri and like the last fight, really cool to see. The humor was really good. It was definitely a lot more lighthearted than Fire Punch. And I know I was just talking about Denji's motivation being comedic. There were some other really good stuff. Burger scene, for those who know, definitely laughed a lot. And but going back to the fights, it was really intense at times. I did like it. It was really bloody. Uh, and at times, I think most of it was really short. But in those short two or three 1 or 2 chapter fights, I was really engaged with the action. Of course, it just involves a lot of Denji ripping it up. I would put it higher, but the thing that's holding me back is that kind of the main two, Denji and Power, I felt like barely got any development. Like Denji kind of stays a dog, metaphorical dog, um, both literal dog, just because he fused with his previously pet dog. But I just didn't like it because they just don't change at all. They kind of stay the same. They kind of stay the same dumb, stupid selves who just go around beating things up, and it's I just couldn't really like them too much just because they stayed the same. I wish there was more development. Of course, we are getting a Chainsaw Man Part 2. Really interesting that they're doing like a second part of a manga, not necessarily continuing the original. I guess that's the author's way of taking a break. But I hope that will flesh out the characters more. I'm really interested to see what will happen. But it was, I would say, as a whole, Chainsaw Man is pretty good. I think lots of people will like it, especially when the anime comes out, hoping it's good, at least decent, at least. It's hard to say just because there's a lot of stuff that will probably require CGI and that's gonna look god awful if done wrong. But we'll have to see. And yeah, I apologize for always ending each manga on a negative note. I've mostly been talking about the goods first and then the bad second, so it may seem like I'm trashing on them. But believe me, most of these I'd say are really lighthearted and sweet. Well, not lighthearted and sweet, but really good reads. A plus. Oh no, A. Only entry in A. We have Shishunki Renaissance David-kun. Now, it may be kind of weird to see a romantic comedy up higher than some of these other things on my list, especially the Shadow. But I may be biased because I quite liked it. It's a romantic comedy, but each of the characters are like famous art pieces. Like the main character is the David, which is statue, and then the girl he likes is Venus from The Birth of Venus, and of course you got some other cool other side characters like Mannequin Piss, definitely the boy, the Chad. Don't know what David would do without him. Don't know what Mannequin Piss would do without David. And there's also Mona Lisa who has like really big assets for some reason. But it was a really lighthearted manga I read, and I think one of the parts that I really loved was the callbacks to all these famous Renaissance art pieces. Like it's kind of hard to tell, but at times, but there's some panels that imitate these artworks, frame, no, not frame by frame, but piece by piece, or something like that. And sometimes I didn't notice at first. I had to like go back, look it up, and see. Oh, they imitated the creation of Adam here, or they did that in the very first chapter. But all these cool stuff, Starry Night, The Scream, you name it, it's somewhere in here. You just gotta find it. And I will say, as a romantic comedy, it really did a good job of the comedy part. There's lots of times I was laughing. Of course, the idea of Mannequin Piss, just like pissing on everything, I found pretty funny, I guess. Romance side, I'd say it was pretty decent. It wasn't too cliche, in my opinion. It kind of had a special twist just because it had the Renaissance factor, but it was still really good. It's a good bit, definitely a good ending conclusion, and I quite liked it. So yeah, if you're really into art, you're really into romantic comedies, really give this one a shot. I think this one ended pretty recently. I think and ended publishing 2019, and it's only 30, 40 chapters. I want to say, not too long, so you can definitely speed through it. But of course, I think every now and then take a bit to admire the art. Even when it's not imitating famous art pieces, you can still the characters and stuff still look really good. A plus. Dorohedoro. Dorohedoro was really cool. I watched the anime first on Netflix, and I was quite amazed. They actually made the CGI look pretty decent. It wasn't really too bad, and I think it kind of fits the world just because it's kind of gritty to begin with, kind of choppy. I really like Dorohedoro just because of the mystery behind it. Well, actually, let's talk about the world building. The world building was amazing. I really like the idea of them living in this place called Hole, a place where non-magic users reside and then get bullied by any magic users that come. And then, of course, they eventually go out of Hole and explore the magic world. And really interesting to see, especially when your main character is practically immune to magic. And going back to the mystery, it was kind of cool finding out who Kaimon is, like why he's alive in the first place, because he's lost his memories, and why is he a lizard, and who is the man in his like mouth. He keeps having flashbacks of Door, and all these questions they eventually get answered. And the manga's at 200 like 60 chapters, I want to say, but the mystery keeps going and going. It was nice seeing it. Um, I didn't feel like it dragged out or anything. It always kept me in suspense. Um, Fights were also really cool. It was nice seeing some side characters which I think weren't going to appear as much, appear way later. Some of the magic users you'll see definitely got more spotlight, and I thought it was really cool to see them get more attention. Not just Kaimon and Nikaido. And the art itself was really cool. It kind of made me realize why I love manga in the first place with the black and white medium, the art style. I think in a dark, desolate world, at least in Whole, the artist really draws things gritty and dark. Really drew me and really mesmerized me. Made me question, oh, what is that thing sticking out right there? Of course, you wouldn't know for sure. Like I don't know if it until it gets colored. I think Kaimon himself was really interesting. He may have seemed like a little one-sided at first. He's like kind of dumb, kind of outgoing, just wants to eat gyoza and have a good time. But he does get development as he like questions his existence, and I thought it was kind of cool to see. Really good manga. Really would recommend. As I would with all of these. I don't know what they're gonna do for the anime because they only had like 12 episodes. The first season only covered like 40 chapters, and there's like 220 more to go. So that's gonna require a lot of seasons. So it's gonna be a long time till they finish, but I will still look forward to any anime adaptation of Dorohedoro. Next on this list is Oyasumi Punpun. Um, this one was this one was downright psychotic. You start with Punpun Onodera, who's a little boy, and then a bunch of stuff happens in his young early life, and both tragic and happy, and it just kind of shapes his view of the world, view of himself, view of life. Almost drives him insane. Well, not almost, not really insane, but becomes depressed, and you get to see Punpun's life from a little boy to like a young adult. Over the time, he's constantly sad. He's given chances to kind of change himself. Sometimes he does change himself, maybe not for the better, and people like try to warm up to him, and it's hard for him to warm up to others, and it's really depressing. I will say, one of my friends who tried reading it dropped it, unfortunately, just because he couldn't deal with the sadness. And that's the thing, like it is a really deep, um, dark story. Not like dark, dark, but really, if you're reading it, just be warned. There's lots of mental issues presented in here, lots of depression, and yeah, like just be warned about that. But it is a the there's a bunch of symbolism in here because Punpun, he's drawn as a little bird while everyone else is drawn human, and he goes through different forms throughout the story. Like sometimes he has a tetrahedron for a head, sometimes his head's just all black, kind of illustrating his different emotions, his view states, his well-being, and just thinking like, when will he be satisfied? When will Punpun be happy? It's just, yeah, it's it's just really deep, man. You'll see what I mean if you read it. And other characters too are going through problems, and just sometimes it makes you cry or feel bad. Sometimes it makes you like go like, what WTF? Like, why? And Punpun makes some dumb decisions, and that's because, and it kind of makes sense in this case because he's been depressed and dark all this time. He doesn't really have common sense at times, but part of that also is a little bit of the problem. I will say, near the end, things just go downright crazy. It's like, what? Why are they doing this? But I don't think I totally understood the motivations at the very end too much. Maybe someone else can explain it. It's really hard to dissect Punpun just because he he rarely ever talks. As also one of the big interesting factors I loved about Punpun. He rarely talks in the beginning. It's just the narrator talking for Punpun. But at the end, he does kind of talk a bit, but still kind of hard to piece together what Punpun's actually thinking. Um, there's a lot of symbolism. I also forgot to mention God, who he views as God, which is like some weird head, just smiles at him. Really, I think the conclusion was still really good. Um, Everything was pretty good, I'd say, except for that one little bit in the end, kind of contradicting myself. But if you like deep, dark, depressing stories, check this one out. Just be mindful. Good vibrations. Now I'm in the S tier. All these are just super amazing down here. Like if I were to recommend you manga, these six are definitely the first ones I would think of. Um, they're all S tier in a way, but the one I'm going to talk about first is Monster, and this is the first of Naoki Urasawa's works I read last year, and his work is honestly some of the best I've written. He's just consistently great at all the stories he's wrote. They're all filled with action and of course mystery. They all involve chasing after some figure, and there's so many parts to the mystery, so many characters involved, and with Monster specifically, it's chasing after about this doctor, Tenma, chasing after this one boy Johan, who grows up to be this like. It's kind of hard to explain Johan. That's kind of the mystery. But Tenma's chasing after Johan, this little boy he saved when he was a doctor, and it turns out he may have saved the wrong person. And this is probably one of the another uh deep manga. I guess it's not too deep, but it's cool when you learn more about Johan. You get to see what he's been thinking, like kind of contemplating who he is or what he is, why he was given a chance to live again in the first place by Tenma. And of course, Tenma is always constantly chasing after him. He eventually abandons his job as a doctor, or at least in the hospital he once worked at. But of course, he still saves other people. I hear some people say this is the best of his work. I can definitely see that it is definitely one of the top contender. But for me personally, I did like this next entry better, and that is Pluto. It is actually the first of Naoki Urasawa that I read. And it's a lot shorter than the others, but of course, it's what drew me into his works in the first place. Pluto is really neat because it involves characters from Astro Boy, and seeing these characters drawn in a more detailed fashion, more serious fashion, was really neat. I think Pluto really delves into kind of what happens if we allow like super AI to coexist. There's a lot of like things about like robot laws, how if they're treated like humans and all that. Really interesting to see. Sometimes the robots or androids or whatever are given feelings. Like they like try to cry. It was really neat seeing um the main detective robot, I forgot his name, is kind of chasing after what Pluto is, and how this unstoppable force has been killing the seven greats one by one, starting with Mont Blanc in the first chapter. And then when you do find out what Pluto is, it's really interesting to see. And of course, you get some cool high action. Well, it's not too high action. The fight's relatively short, but the robots, you really get to see their strong power put to use, whether they win or not. But still really good. It was makes me appreciate Astro Boy a little more. Not that I didn't appreciate it. Not that I've ever watched Astro Boy, but it was just a nice spin on the franchise. And then the third Urasawa work that I read last year, 20th Century Boys, the one that impressed me the most. This one was really cool. It involved a group of boys and one girl, kind of like living their lives in the 20th century. Right, and it was like in old Japan, well, not old Japan, but like 70s or whatever. Kind of in a rural area. It's nice to see. Like they have fun. They play fun games with other kids. There's like other boys in their town that they come over. They go to like little old shops with candy run by an old lady. They make bases in the fields and all that. And I think it was really cool to see this olden times kind of brought to life. But they eventually, grow up, and it shows them as an adult now. But there's this kind of madman, this going around named Friend. And Friend is a mysterious figure who's running a cult. Draws many people in, and he promises like salvation when he's secretly plotting the destruction of the world. But it turns out Friend is secretly something that the boys, their group, made up when they were young. And they apparently thought up of all these plans. But they're in their 30s now, and it's kind of hard to remember what they've done as kids. And apparently one of them took it literally in trying to make these plans come to life. And they kind of are succeeding. But it was nice to see like them fighting with, not fighting, but kind of having trouble remembering how they were as a kid and finding which one of their friends that they played with is Friend. Really good mystery. It extended quite a bit. I think it could have been shortened a little bit more. Friend is just like a big figure, and it really takes a while to find out who Friend is. And then there's even a little continuation manga called 21st Century Boy, which is like a little shorter, and it continues right after 20th Century Boy. And I'm including that with this, but overall the mystery super good. A lot of the boys in the group and girl get to shine in their own way. They each appear in their own separate segment, and they each contribute. Like you really need each of them in order to stop the end of the world. Of course, you got Kenji, the main dude, saving the world with the power of music. The ultimate hippie. I've been reading more Naoki Urasawa right now in 2021. I'm reading Billy Bat. Plan to read some other ones. But they're all pretty amazing. I think Naoki Urasawa would probably be one of the best mangaka out there. Just because he's consistently writing these good stories. And I wonder if he'll keep writing some more now. I don't know if he's working on any at the moment, but we'll see. 3 more. Another S-class that is gonna be Slam Dunk. Now, I will admit it's been a while since I played basketball, at least on a team, since middle school. But Slam Dunk kind of made me remember what made basketball so great in the first place. The high speed action, consistent, constant passing of the ball, the movement of all the characters, the suspense when a character takes a shot, both in a 3-pointer Hail Mary or in like just in a free throw foul. And Slam Dunk is probably one of the best sports manga you can find out there. The way the characters are drawn, and the way they move is just so clean, so fresh. You can kind of track the movement so well, despite it being basketball, and you have like 10 players on the court. Of course, not all 10 characters are on each panel, but with the interactions between 2 or 3, Um, one blocking, one advancing. It's just really clean to see. Um, the characters themselves, they really grow. The main five all do their part, and they each have their own individual growth, both as players and as people. Especially the main one, Sakuragi Hanamichi, the ginger, tall ginger dude. He may seem like a little like uh one sided at first, but he does get personality, and he eventually learns how to work with his team, and he's like the ultimate basketball prodigy because he goes from not learning how to play to being like one of the best. And I love this manga so much. It got me out on the courts, shooting some balls, um, making me relive the good old days. Makes me wish I kind of stuck with basketball still. Of course, I love tennis and all that, but maybe I do. Will try to. Maybe I will try to do some basketball in the future. Um, Join some kind of casual club in college. We'll see. But Slam Dunk, honestly, is a masterpiece by Takahiko Inoue, same guy who actually wrote Vagabond and Real, which I definitely want to try reading next. But if you love basketball, or if you love sports, and you love manga, Slam Dunk is the one for you. And my second favorite, is I Am a Hero. This was also recommended to me by the same dude who recommended me Signal 100. Um, I loved it. Of course, it's number two in the list. It's not necessarily number two, but it is number two of the S. And I Am a Hero really does a cool spin on zombies. Um, Usually I'm not a big fan of zombies. I think they're creepy, but this one kind of made it really cool. The main character, forgot his name, but he's a really interesting guy. Uh, he's just trying to live, but he's also like constantly hallucinating. Um, both by some of the manga characters he worked on, and both by like random figures. And it was just kind of creepy at first. In first chapters, he was like hallucinating, but at the same time, you're like, is he hallucinating? Is that zombie real or is that all in his head? And it's just kind of cool delving into the character's mind and stuff. Of course, the other characters too are really great. He meets so many people who help him live in the zombie apocalypse. Um, some live, some die. You'll see. And I just really like the action, even if they just have guns. Some of them brave enough to use axes. I think the one part in the mall was definitely intense. This is kind of, let's see. Another thing is like the movie. Movie is really good. I know it's not really part of the manga, but I think they really did the live adaptation really well. They also still incorporated his hallucinations, so it still made you wonder what was going on. But yeah, check that out after you read the manga. Uh, I Am a Hero's ending. It's also kind of weird. Definitely not what I expected, but it happened. And I mean, that's how you. I mean, there's different ways you can conclude a zombie apocalypse, and that was just one of the ways. But it's made me feel kind of bad for the main character. Kind of hard to explain, but I loved it nonetheless. Uh, really loved it. There are some side stories that take place in other places, that take place in other cities. Like there's one called I Am a Hero in Osaka and I Am a Hero in Nagasaki. I think some of them are drawn by different people, but they still take place in the same universe, and it's neat to see how other people are dealing, living and dealing with the zombie apocalypse around the globe. And of course, who could have seen this coming? Number one, Berserk. What do you need to know? You got Donovan. You got Schnoz. You got Potato Casca. Real talk though, Berserk is a legend among legends. Kentaro Miura is a legend, and Berserk is honestly one of the greatest mangas ever written. It's both drawn beautifully, and the story itself is amazing. Um, really seeing Guts struggle, being powerless at times, even though he's got a giant ass sword named Dragon Slayer. He's chopping things to bits. He's still unable to win or always protect the ones he loves. Or maybe he has to choose between protecting the ones he loves versus chasing after Griffith, one of the greatest villains I'd say in manga history. Griffith's interesting because he's constantly going for power. He just craves more and more. He's willing to do whatever it takes. Um, and ultimately, Guts becomes this dark, sinister being. Yet he's still the protagonist, consumed with rage, trying to kill Griffith and kill all demons. He vows to just kill them all. I think the story of Guts is just really beautiful, just illustrating his struggles, both emotionally and physically. There's so many things he has to go through, and he's constantly evolving and learning. He eventually meets up with, eventually like trusts other companions instead of just working alone. He learns, and he kind of mellows out. And some people may not like that first, because I do agree that the last chapters are not as dark and gloomy as it was in the very beginning. But I think that's kind of the point, because it's kind of showing that, you know, Guts isn't as mad anymore. Honestly, the manga's still continuing. I forgot to mention that, of course. That's the big thing. Constantly riddled of hiatuses. It's hard, Mirai, of course, working with his idol master. Yep, very funny original joke, but you can tell it's not an easy task to make Berserk. The art is always super stellar. Everything is so visually detailed. There's this one scene where there's a bunch of tentacles on the screen, but each tentacle is drawn articulately and differently. Like there's different patterns on each tentacle, and it makes you wonder how long it took Mira to draw that. Of course, he has editors and apprentices, understudies working under him, imitating his art, and it's just phenomenal seeing each panel drawn beautifully. It wasn't like that always in the beginning. Of course, the first many chapters, were not the level that you see today, but they were still good, and it was great to see Mira evolve as an artist as well, with Guts evolving. I guess that doesn't really have a correlation, but the art progressively becomes more beautiful and beautiful as Mira becomes just like a really good artist. But Berserk does a really good job at painting a fantasy tale. I'm sure it's inspired many Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. It really made me love the fantasy aspect, but a little bit more anime-ish, just because it's Guts wielding a giant 600-pound, probably 10-foot sword. It's just really, I don't even think it's 600 pounds. Probably way more than that, just because it's a giant hunk of iron. It's too big to be called a sword. But yeah, this video way too long. I think it's over an hour probably, I bet. But what can I say? All these manga are just downright amazing in their own right. I mean, some definitely more than others. And that's kind of it for my manga list. 2020 definitely a good time for me to read manga, just with all the free time I've had, and it's introduced me to so many amazing series. I didn't put One Punch Man, One Piece, or JoJo on here, which, although they all did get really good chapters. One Piece hit 1,000 chapters. One Punch Man got some really good fight scenes, and then JoJo, of course, also really good stuff. We got chapter 100, and oh man, JoJo might be one of my favorite JoJo parts. But anyways, I didn't put those 3 series on here because I started reading it before 2020, and I only wanted to put series that I think that I started in 2020, not necessarily continued reading. So that's why there's only these 20. But that's gonna do it for me. Oh man, that was quite a bit. I talked way too much. These are my top 20 2020 manga I read. Top 20 manga I read in 2020. So many 20s. I'm gonna turn 20 this year, actually, in 2021. Can you believe that? But this has been a trip. I love manga, love anime, and I feel like I read so many great ones in 2020 that I'm honestly cannot wait to read some more 2021. Maybe update you guys on that later. But that's gonna do it for me. I'll see you guys later. Um, Even if you didn't watch the whole thing, that's totally cool. Maybe you just wanted to hear my opinion on one or two of these entries. Maybe you disagree, maybe you agree. Let me know in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and yeah, I guess see you guys later. Peace.